Becoming the Man, Chapter 5, Mr. White's Years as the Man. Mr. White was living many dreams at once during his early years as the man. He was living out the dream his father once dreamt of being a success by working smarter and not harder. He was chasing his own dreams of applying his father's work ethic to something that was so much bigger than the little town he came of age in. Another dream was something that almost every man visualizes at some point. A life with your beautiful lady, stability, your health, and in his case, enough money to make more money. He made plenty of money. But even the money wasn't enough to keep Victoria. She wanted children, but Mr. White during the early years had to travel a lot and always be on call because what was supposed to be a quiet time turned into a turbulent time. After 6 years of marriage, Victoria buckled under the pressure of being the man's wife. He never had the luxury of being able to tell her exactly what it was he did, so this added tremendous strain to the situation. He thought he would be able to balance it because when you're young, sometimes you think like that. Mr. White's era of being the man stretched from the months following the Martin Luther King assassination up until the mid-1990s. He was faced with many challenges. A lot of the things he manufactured are still working to this day. He crafted a good amount of permanent fixtures. He had a lot to do with the bus systems, what buses and routes went to what neighborhoods and at what time, the school systems, the job market, the financial sector, but most importantly, zoning. Zoning was probably his most effective tool in building on what the previous man had designed, the process of deciding what goes where. He put the liquor stores and the churches on the corners. He replaced banks gradually with check-cashing centers. He decided what housing goes next to what factories, and all of this made for a whole economy in itself. He needed to create certain social conditions and use those conditions as fuel to power the bigger machine, which was ultimately the United States of America. Since the African American was never visualized to be in the equation as a free man, there had to be a way to fund the role in society that he would play. The actor had to not only be tricked into playing his role, but he also must fund his costume during the process. For many years, the show went on and things got worse. One thing that was a curveball in Mr. White's well-orchestrated plan was the Black Panther Party. See, Mr. White was used to sitting behind a desk and using his influence to manipulate Black America like a mathematical equation. The Black Panthers were so grassroots and hidden deep within the inner city at first that by the time they showed up on his radar, they were already causing him problems. They provided breakfast for inner city youth, boosting test scores because the children could finally concentrate. They armed themselves, not to destroy each other, but with larger ambitions of bringing down the man. Of course, they had no idea that there really was a man who was simply one man. The Nation of Islam Mr. White could deal with because some positivity was good for the balance of things. He knew that the poisons he allowed into the black man's corner stores, the lack of education and the joblessness, could outweigh the good that the Nation of Islam did because Mr. White had such a huge head start in the race. With the Panthers, however, he believed that they could build an army big enough and unpredictable enough to mess up everything. The FBI must have felt the same way because they swooped in and dismantled them one by one. As the years went on, there were gangs, drugs, disease, but disease was out of Mr. White's hands, and poverty, which all played right into the system he created with his supercomputer, Rusty. It was nothing for Mr. White in 1 week to keep tens of thousands, if not at times millions of African Americans unemployed or underemployed. He had ways of making sure that certain schools were inferior. He always reached his numbers. At times, there were low points. The riots of 1992 in Los Angeles were a low point when his volatile mixture of ingredients accidentally banged together in an explosive manner. Crack cocaine, which wasn't one of his creations, made his numbers unpredictable and sucked so much money out of the economy that he was trying to control. Of course, it made things difficult. It brought out the worst in humanity, and this was one time when Mr. White attached emotion to his work. It made him sad that a person could sell an infant for a drug. The subtle things he did for so long worked so well. He held down the fort during a very memorable time in history, but his time as the man, he felt, was coming to an end. He set up many options for an African American to make the wrong choices which would directly benefit his agenda. The higher-ups loved him, because whoever they reported to loved them. They respected how if times got desperate, he always thought of the little things like taking music from inner city schools or setting up states to trade prisoners to fill empty jails. During his time, Mr. White left no stone unturned. For anyone who lived during the years he was the man, you witnessed his works. All races on earth were influenced by the work of the man.